Cahara is something of an outlier among our four protagonists. He lacks the connection to the greater scheme of things the others had before even entering the dungeon. He is just a mercenary hired to do a job. He has no connection to the Man of Prophecy, and has no past experience with the old gods or the darkness of the world. And unlike the other three, he has a family waiting for him. He had everything to lose, and we are going to watch him lose it all. Cahara was born in the capital city of the Eastern Sanctuaries, Jitaya, and was a bearer of the soul of the Endless. With his soul came the strong desire for freedom and the pursuit of creativity. Unfortunately, as a young child, he was abandoned to the harsh Jitaya streets by his parents. There his creativity and resourcefulness would be put to the test. He barely managed to get by as a pickpocket, and eventually worked his way up to burglary. Once he was older, Cahara would try his hand as a mercenary. After some time participating in various raids and bouncing from one independent army to another, his talents caught the attention of a notorious veteran highwayman. Cahara would join up with him and his surly band of former soldiers and criminals. They became something of a new family, and taught Cahara every dirty trick in the book. During one of their many raids, Cahara's brigade got ambushed. Surrounded and outnumbered, the outcome was clear. Cahara managed to slip away in the chaos and abandon his new family to their fate, as his old one had abandoned him. He couldn't look himself in the mirror the same way after that. Cahara drifted aimlessly as a leaf in the wind, eventually ending up in the kingdom of Rondon, where the silver was loose as long as he was willing to get his knife dirty. He would spend most of his time and coin in the red light district. Eventually he would fall in love with a prostitute named Celeste, and would seek to buy her freedom from her indentured servitude. Unfortunately, it would take many years for Cahara to save the sum necessary to do so. But he didn't have that kind of time. Celeste was pregnant, and Cahara didn't want the child raised in that environment. He wanted to make sure the child didn't have to struggle the way he did. And then one day, Cahara's prayers were answered. A certain official of the kingdom made him an offer too good to refuse. They needed an outside sword to infiltrate their own stronghold, and rescue the fabled captain of the Midnight Sun, Lagarde. Cahara knew there was something not right with the mission. There must have been some kind of behind-the-scenes political schism. The mission would be dangerous. So dangerous that a man would have to be insane or desperate to consider it. But even if Cahara wanted to refuse the chance to get Lagarde's sizable bounty, he was strongly encouraged to take up the mission just to avoid becoming a loose end. And Cahara already knew firsthand that loose ends are never left untied for too long. In preparation before his departure from Rondon, he spent the entire night at the brothel drinking and saying his goodbyes to Celeste. The world of Fear and Hunger is a dark, cruel place, and its inhabitants follow suit. And water is wet. We are not dealing with epic heroes and paragons of morality. There is no black and white, just black and gray for the most part. You would be hard-pressed to find anyone or anything that isn't deeply flawed and selfish at best, or simply evil at worst. That is, except for Moonless and the girl. But I digress. Cahara is not an exception. He is a liar, a thief, a murderer, a coward, a backstabber, etc. He is very much that smooth-talking, chaotic-neutral rogue in terms of his morality and skill set, and very much a product of his environment. He started out life on terror and starvation mode, and has made countless selfish choices, always looking out for number one. He knows it, and he hates himself for it. But despite his flaws, he wants to change, to stop taking the path of least resistance. He wants to be better. He wants to do right by Celeste and his family. Say what you want about the man, but he would die to protect his family. A big change from the man who left his comrades to die. Love can do that sort of thing, even in Fear and Hunger. I've mentioned before that you can find Castlevania influences in Fear and Hunger. Although this is not a direct reference, it is interesting that back before the game was being developed by Miro, he made concept art for a vampire hunter and a female vampire which inspired the designs of Cahara and Celeste. Sort of makes me wish there was an ugly deformed vampire enemy to hunt down. Cahara has an interesting crest on his leather armor that is also branded into the flesh of his new god counterpart. It bears a resemblance to the brand of sacrifice from Berserk. Perhaps a hint that he was the fated sacrifice essential for the god of fear and hunger's birth, although Miro has stated he thinks it's just a family crest, not an arcane symbol, which in and of itself is a little odd, considering that he was abandoned as a child. but later somehow determined what his family crest was, and later had it specifically placed on his armor. Or maybe it is the family crest from the soldier he stole it from. So I will let you, the viewers, make up your minds on the significance. One last bit of trivia is Cahara's name does not have a real-world analog, and is a play on the word character, which Miro used as a placeholder for characters that did not have official names yet. But it stuck with Cahara in this case because Miro felt that it had a desert bandit feel to it. Although their time together was short, both Cahara and Darcy would come to regard each other as trusted allies, despite the fact that he had come to her rescue in the cave-dweller village. Cahara recognized Darcy as a strong warrior, and not a damsel in distress. When surrounded by the moonless guards, he even lamented the fact that she was no longer there to watch his back after she went her own way in Mahabra. They leaned on each other when the pressures of the dungeon were too much to bear, encouraging one another to keep pushing forward through the darkness. Cahara did have some affection for Darcy, he even had a pet name for her. She did not seem particularly fond of it, but she didn't feel the need to correct him either. If they had been given the opportunity, they may have even indulged in a brief affair. But at the end of the day, Celeste would be the one that Cahara would always return to, and Darcy's heart was tightly in Lagarde's grip, at least at the time. After they split up, Cahara regretted not trying harder to convince her to leave with him and the girl. But he respected her decision, and didn't want to pry too hard into her personal reasons for staying behind. Enki's and Cahara's brief encounter was entirely transactional. He stroked Enki's ego, and in turn Enki divulged lots of useful information to Cahara. Nothing more, nothing less. Cahara had virtually no relationship to the Outlander. He just knew to stay on his good side after witnessing his superhuman combat prowess. Cahara was indifferent to Isaiah upon their first meeting, and did not trust the authenticity of his maps. But after seeing Mahabra with his own eyes, Cahara knew that 50 silver was a steal, and was all too happy to take advantage of the masked stranger. Cahara was only vaguely aware of the new gods before being whisked away by the passages of Mahabra, and in spite of being aware that they were watching him from afar, he still couldn't care less about any of them. Although, had he understood the connection between Nilvan and the girl, he would have savored his part in killing her for abandoning the girl the way his parents abandoned him. As far as Cahara was concerned, the pocket cat was nothing more than some terrifying boogeyman that he and the girl had the great misfortune of catching the attention of. Both the lust and bloodlust the pocket cat displayed sickened Cahara deep down to his core, not to mention the monster's bizarre romantic and sexual advances. Cahara wanted nothing to do with the strange one-sided relationship the pocket cat had constructed out of seemingly nowhere. Furthermore, the mystery of why it didn't simply try to kill him and take the girl by force left Cahara even more unsettled. In the end, the pocket cat was an enigmatic terror that haunted him for the rest of his short life. Cahara immediately empathized with the girl, who had been abandoned and imprisoned within the hellish dungeon. She was starved and alone, an even darker mirror of his own terrible childhood. With Celeste expecting his paternal instincts kicked in, he wanted to save her. He wouldn't be able to live with himself if he didn't at least try. Had leaving the dungeon empty-handed been an option, he may have opted to escape with the girl right then. Cahara picked up on the girl's peculiarities very quickly, most notably when she invoked the passages of Mahabra to save them from the cave-in in the mines. But whatever her origin was, that didn't matter to him. He just knew that he had to protect her. Even he was surprised how her timid smile filled him with joy. In the few short days he had spent with her, he had grown to love her like his own daughter, and was willing to risk life and limb to keep her safe. Was Cahara the one who escorted the girl to the heart of darkness? I believe that is the most likely and best explanation. These are the definitive things that we know. The god of fear and hunger exists. The Kaiser is a new god and is Lagarde's reflection. Nasra was present when he sat on the throne, and then was later burned so severely that it bypassed his near invulnerability. Regenwalder survives and leaves behind a legacy of monster hunters. These hunters specifically want to kill the Kaiser and are associated with Moonless, who is in possession of the miasma and the black steel of the East. Enki survives and writes the Skin Bibles. There is no references to Cahara in Termina. We can eliminate Regenwalder and Enki from possible escorts, so how about Darcy? Darcy's central focus is on saving Lagarde. Going to the heart of darkness would not further that in any way. The Kaiser has a unique interaction with the rot spell, completely removing all of his skin instead of just creating small rot patches, a hint suggesting that Darcy performed her ascending, leaving Lagarde skinless. a trait that was partially incorporated into his new god reflection. She then would have most likely followed him to the void and bowed down. How about Nasra? Could he have taken her to the Heart of Darkness after Lagarde entered the void? It's not impossible, but why would he? He hates the new gods. If Nilvan wants the girl to go to the Heart of Darkness, then that is exactly what Nasra does not want to happen. It is more likely that he encountered the traces of Grogoroth and was then burned to a crisp, which has a special interaction, than to have seen the birth of the god of fear and hunger and got burned by her, which does not have a special interaction. Then how about Nosramis? She is well versed in all things related to the gods, old, new, and ascended. She would have no doubt known it would be fatal to be present at the girl's true ascension. She is first and foremost a scientist, and would not want to leave her centuries of research incomplete. You don't study a nuclear detonation at ground zero. You observe from a safe distance and study the fallout. Witnessing how the world changes after the god of fear and hunger's birth is much more valuable than witnessing the birth itself. Among the current new gods, only Nilvan is aware of the girl, so Francois, Batiel, and Chambara can be ruled out. So then why didn't Nilvan just take the girl herself? Most likely she had lost all of her power by the time the girl was ready, and simply couldn't. Could the girl have gone to the Heart of Darkness on her own? Well, considering she couldn't escape the cage on her own, probably not. Why would she even want to do that anyway? It would make more sense to try to escape the dungeon than to delve deeper down. Her cage was very close to the entrance after all. Even if Nilvan appeared to her in a dream and explained to her how to become a god, would she have understood or even cared? The chances of her even wanting to enter the gauntlet or surviving by herself is basically zero. That really only leaves Cahara. There are so many little things that point to him being the one that brought the girl to the Heart of Darkness. He could easily pick the lock on the cage. He could empathize with her in a way that others could not. They were both abandoned and unwanted by their mothers. Cahara aspires to be a good father, which could feed his desire to save the girl. He spends time in the same cell as her peculiar doll. He shares a soul type with her mother, giving him and the girl a pseudo-spiritual connection. He plans to both care and provide for Celeste's child, who very likely is not his. So blood has no importance to him, so adopting the girl as his own is not a stretch. Also, there is the allusion to the brand of sacrifice I referenced earlier. Not to mention, not having a legacy tells a story as well. Then there is his S-ending. Something about it just doesn't ring true. It lacks the narrative weight of the other three S-endings. Whether it is true or false does not matter to the greater scheme of things. Furthermore, is it plausible that the man who found the city of the gods and claimed the crown given to the king of Mahabra by the gods themselves would leave no lasting legacy? The crown was a religious artifact of such enormous value that a dirty commoner from a foreign country could sell it and become instantly more wealthy and influential than all the nobles in the land. The whole scenario is too good to be true. Books and songs would be written about his rags to riches story. But there were no books, no songs, no traces of Cahara left behind. No one remembers the man who turned the political structure of his day on its head. The whole affair sounds like the dreams of a dying man as he slowly bleeds out. The dungeon of fear and hunger will change you. It is an inescapable inevitability. It exerts a tremendous oppressive pressure on all foolish enough to enter. Most succumb, losing their grip on reality as their mind and body become increasingly warped, deformed, and monstrous. But a very select few, instead of crumbling under the pressure, are transformed into diamonds. Before he had ever stepped foot in the dungeon, Cahara was a selfish, cutthroat mercenary. No dirty deed was off the table if you had enough coin. But he wanted to change. He wanted to be a good man and father that Celeste and her child could be proud of. The dungeon subjected Cahara to unimaginable terror and his past regrets alike. But there was something else there waiting for him. A lost little girl who needed him. When the unfathomable evil of the dungeon bared down on Cahara, seeking to destroy him and the girl, he did not falter. He changed, his own life and well-being be damned. All that mattered was protecting that little girl. He had finally become the selfless, loving father he had wanted to be. Even after the terror and confusion of her true ascension as the god of fear and hunger, inside the Heart of Darkness, Cahara still loved her, so much so that with his final act he dragged his broken body as close as he could get to her new incomprehensible form, desperately seeking to comfort her in any way he could from the agony of her transformation. One man's kindness had changed the world, but the world had forgotten him. His story would go unsung, his sacrifice unknown among men. But there is beauty to be found in this darkness, is there not?